What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. You thought the 50th episode was going to be it? Nah, we got ourselves another big show. My guest will be Clay Webb, the head men's and women's volleyball coach. And he's an overall great guy, and he's just a superb individual as a whole. What will we be hearing from Mr. Webb on the men's and women's side, and what's to come this upcoming season? Also, the NCAA has released some tough news. They have canceled all of the fall championships this upcoming fall. It's unfortunate, so I'll be weighing in on that after my interview with Webb, and pretty much having my overall thoughts on the cancellation of all fall sports. It's a bummer, but it's for the safety and for the great of good. So you'll be hearing that and more here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And we are live yet again for another episode of Set Point. As I said, my name is Teran Rodriguez. And without any further delay, let us introduce our first guest, our first and only guest. He is the men's and women's volleyball coach at Park University in Gilbert, Arizona. And more importantly, he's just an all-around great guy, and he's done a great job with both programs who just finished up their first year. Without any further delay, introducing the one, the only, Mr. Clay Webb. Clay, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Terry, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Not a problem, man, and great to have you aboard. Hope you're staying cool because... Fun fact about Mr. Webb, he hails from Arizona, which obviously he is the head coach of Park University in Gilbert, Arizona. Fun fact about Park University, there are actually two Park Universities, one in Gilbert, Arizona, as I just mentioned, and one in Missouri. And silly me, right. I accidentally thought he was the one from Missouri, and it's like, oops. So, we all make mistakes, so...
It happens. They've had a lot of success. We're hoping to kind of follow that trend, so there we go.
Absolutely. So without any further delay, let us dive on to this interview like a libero. Sound the thunder, y'all. Even though it's pretty sunny outside. So before we get into this little interview, just as a disclaimer, these are the thoughts and the opinions of myself and of Clay Webb, not of IE Sports Radio, not of Long Beach State, and not of Park University in Gilbert, Arizona. So, just gotta get that little housekeeping rule out of the way. So,
sure. Clay,
the floor is yours. Tell everyone who you are, what you do, and how you got into volleyball.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks again for having me on the show. My name is Clay Webb. I'm the head coach of Park University Gilbert men's and women's volleyball team. This is our second year in existence in competition. So last year was our first inaugural season, and this year is our first season as an official NAIA member. Started out playing volleyball. Actually, funny story. It's always funny to tell you, my friends and people, how I got involved in volleyball. I was playing football. And our varsity coach, my freshman year came to us and was like, hey, you guys have to play two sports if you ever want to play on varsity. So coming from the football coach, you're like, oh, man, okay, how that is. So originally I'm actually from New Mexico, and I had just moved to Arizona as a freshman, and it was 100+ degrees outside, and I was already dying of heat. Put myself in the pads in football, so I made the decision to go away from baseball, a sport that I had played like all my childhood. And I was like, you know what? A couple of my buddies were like, hey, let's check out this indoor sport, volleyball. It's air conditioned. It sounds like fun. And at Hamilton High School, where I went to in the Valley, started out there, and kind of from there went off to Arizona State University. My high school sweetheart, who's now my wife at the time, convinced me to stay in Arizona and kind of pursue my degree and my education versus kind of following my passion to play at the junior college level out in California. So I stayed in Arizona, and now we're happily married. We've got 2 kids. So played at Arizona State University on the club team for a couple of years, and then actually kind of dove into my degree in physical education. So I got my degree in physical education. And with that, my sole purpose was to be a coach. I wanted to coach in high school, and people would ask me, in 10, 15 years, what do you want to do? And I always had the aspirations I'd like to coach in college. And knowing that Park Gilbert had an opening coming up, I put my name in the hat and was able to, fortunately get a chance to interview with some amazing people over there, and I was blessed enough to say they picked me to be the volleyball coach for Park University.
That's some great stuff right there, Clay.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. So let's turn back the clocks a little bit, back to this past spring season. So this past men's volleyball season, you had some interesting matchups, and you first and foremost, one matchup that stands out was playing at Grand Canyon University. So what was it like facing one of the more premier teams in the NCAA Division I and II section?
Yeah, playing at GCU is such an honor for us because, Matt Worley over there, he runs a great program. And for us, for our guys, I want to show them that although, we're at the NAIA level, that doesn't mean that you can't compete with the top dogs at the Division I. Now, granted, we did go in there and they put a handing to us, but, it's one of those things where the atmosphere is something that, we don't always get to experience. They filled that arena. It was their first home opener, so this stadium was absolutely packed. So for our guys, it was a little, shell shock and an experience that they will never forget. They just got their new Jumbotron on the wall, so they were kind of showcasing that. So it was a big ordeal and a cool experience to be a part of, and we're planning on doing it again, year in, year out, because hopefully we can keep that relationship with GCU.
Good stuff. And someone in the chat, we actually have a chat room when it comes to our platform on Spreaker. Larry B. is actually a student at Cal Baptist University, and he knows all about how GCU is because GCU is a part of the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference. So what can you say about the volleyball crowd at Grand Canyon University?
Well, like I said, it was quite intense. I mean, I forget what they call themselves over there, but I mean, everyone's decked out in purple. They're jumping up and down between timeouts. They've got, they're throwing shirts and stuff like that. So it's a fun event, fun arena to be a part of, and I know when they play like BYU, they play in their bigger arena because they fill it up, and it's just the atmosphere that they can bring to the area is pretty cool.
Awesome. Now, another big matchup you had was against the reigning NAIA champion, Benedictine.
Right.
And you took them to 5 sets, and I don't think anyone expected that. So how were you able to get the early jump on Benedictine after losing that first set?
Yeah, so a couple of the guys on the other side of the net, I coached and we're kind of aware of, but I got to credit my coaching staff. We went to work in the film room and we kind of dialed in a game plan that we had in place to hopefully put them out of sorts in certain areas that was advantageous for us, but was poor for them. So we took advantage of that, and going into that 5th set, it was anybody's game. But at the end of the day, they're team had been together a little bit more, we just made, young, silly errors to where, had we not made a couple things there at the tail end, we could have easily walked away with a win. So I love that we competed. So that was huge for us.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. A first-year program going 5 with Benedictine. Now, I know Benedictine did lose some players to graduation, and obviously, And I think their start to the schedule was quite unusual. I think they start off with playing Long Beach State or something.
They had a gnarly little start to their schedule, so I know they took their lick early on. So coming into us, they hadn't really found their groove yet. So, we were still trying to figure our stuff out as well. So, both teams were playing sloppy here and there, but, there's some really high-level volleyball, and, we get to play them 2 times a year every year. So, and I know Ray Lewis, and he's not going to stop recruiting the way he's recruiting, so he's going to continue to have skilled, talented players on the other side of the court. So I'm excited for that yearly battle, somewhat of a rivalry in the Valley, since they're only, 10, 15 minutes away.
I'm excited for that as well. Just hearing that kind of gets me excited and motivated. So the first win of the season and first win of your program came against, I wouldn't say a rival, but it came from like a neighboring rival in Arizona Christian. What was that first win like, beating a neighborhood rival?
Well, that was big for us. So, going into it, we knew kind of ACU's kind of rapport and whatnot, and we just said, okay, let's just kind of go in, play our game, and be the first team to win a game. So ACU had yet to win a match, so it was, I think, their second year in existence as a program. So they're just getting started as well, right? So they're starting to find their groove and whatnot. So they were still, they hadn't won a game yet. So we were both kind of at that point where it's like, one of us is going to walk away with a win. And, we talked about it beforehand, let's let that be us. So, we had a good showing out there. We had a lot of players that played really well against them, and we were able to walk away with the win. It was awesome.
It's always great to get that first ever victory in your program, and there's no better feeling than that. So, another matchup you had, all right, and this is probably, I wouldn't say this is the silly one, but you faced the other Park University of Missouri. Yeah. So, was that a little difficult facing Park versus Park action, and was it a little difficult for fans to kind of understand?
Yeah, so, our women's team had actually traveled there and done the same thing in the fall, earlier in the year. So we actually, in the men's side of things, we were kind of going as the second time around. It was cold, definitely from Arizona going over to Missouri, so it was a lot colder in the wintertime out there. So, but playing against them, his entire squad, if you look at their roster, it's largely international, Brazilian guys from Brazil, guy from Spain, stuff like that. And just the overall well-rounded athletes that they were was just completely different volleyball than what we had seen all year long. So I think their setter made one of the most ridiculous plays that I've ever seen, to where it was like he passed the ball with the side of his foot with a perfect set to the pin, and the pin had one-on-one, and he thundered it down. So it was one of those things to where it's how did he just do that? He must have played soccer, a lot and whatnot. But it was a lot of fun being in that atmosphere. Again, they're a solid squad as well. They were ranked. When we went out to that invitational out there at Park, there was quite a few teams that we played that were stout, that had really solid teams, and for us to go in there and compete the way that we did, I couldn't be happier as a program, especially knowing that we're a first-year program. So going in and kind of waking people up in the first set or kind of competing with people is always a fun thing. I love being the underdog, right? Because no one thinks you're going to win, and when you do, it's a huge surprise, and then you walk away like you should have won the whole time.
Absolutely, and having that little mentality of you have nothing to lose just makes the underdog a lot more dangerous. Kind of like NAIA is no different than the NCAA. There's the rankings and upsets on every night, so it's different. So believe it or not, Clay, you're actually the second NAIA volleyball coach I've had as a guest. The first one was actually Brad Rostratter of Vanguard University.
Oh, we played them, yeah. Brad's great.
Yeah, so what can you say about Brad Rostratter, and despite only knowing him for like a little amount of time?
So I've met Brad throughout like the club scene as well too. So we kind of had conversations beforehand, and then when I took over at Park, it was one of those things. He was taking over at Vanguard, and we both were like, "Hey, let's pick up a match if we can." And so we were able to pick up a match when we were out in California. He's got their warm up over there. They're throwing footballs, and I like it. You know what I mean? You learn things from other coaches as you're going to different venues. You know, every team warm-ups differently. Every team does things differently than you do. And as a coach, you're constantly trying to better yourself and better your program, right? So, when we're going out there, I just kind of like to see what he was doing out there. They were very well-rounded for being, a new program. So I was impressed with what he did and how he carries himself out there. Obviously, he's got the Balboa Bay connection, so that helps. But, if anything, he's running a great program at Vanguard. So I look forward to playing them again next year.
I actually want to see, if I had known that was going to happen, I would have actually gone to that match. And I hope you all can come back to Vanguard again. I'd like to meet you in person and
sure.
All of that. So, playing in the gymnasium of Vanguard, also known as the Pit, was it a little difficult and intimidating playing at the Pit, or what can you say about playing at the Pit?
I actually thought it was a pretty cool gym. The roof was kind of wonky as far as the height of it. It was really low. So there's a couple beams that come across that, like, if you hit it just right, that ball's coming straight back down in your face. So there's a couple, spots and a couple balls that, hard-driven balls, you dig it, but it hits the roof, at 100 miles an hour, and there's nothing you can do about it when it comes back. So I thought that was neat. And then they have this, like, upper standing deck area for people to stand and watch if they wanted to get, like, a different perspective or a different view of it. So I thought that was kind of a neat feature of their gym, for sure.
Yeah, I love the old school aspect of the Pit. Like it's close to the court, and obviously, like you said, the roof was a little short, but it does have that little old school feel. So
for sure,
yeah. So back. Okay, so now let's go let's go to this on a little lighter note. So you obviously were in California. Did you manage to get any in and out when you were in California?
Yeah. Well, we have In-N-Out out here in Arizona, too, so we're good here. I actually have, like, an In-N-Out that's, like, 2 minutes away from my house, so we go get that protein-style burger all the time. But no, actually, what we did is while we were out there, we had a couple kids on our team that were from some of the areas that we were going to, and we got some recommendations for some food spots. And, oh, man, we had some amazing breakfast, tacos and burritos and stuff like that I hope that next year it's like, hey, where do we go? Let's go there again. That was fantastic. So, I enjoyed experimenting and trying out new places.
Good stuff. And that Vanguard match was on a Thursday. Unfortunately, it was on a Thursday. Otherwise, after the match, I'd say go get some tacos on Taco Tuesday.
Right?
Absolutely. So, looking back at this schedule, you had back-to-back matches against Westcliff. What was that like, playing them at Westcliff and then 6 days later you play them again at your place?
Yeah. It wasn't too bad. Both matches were, back and forth. I thought we were both evenly matched as far as teams are concerned. He had a couple great guys that were putting balls away, and then we couldn't stop them one set. They couldn't stop us one set, so it would go back and forth. So it was a lot of fun. The 6-day turnaround wasn't too bad. That's just kind of how the schedule worked out for us. But it was nice because we were able to take the film from the first match and really kind of critique the things that we did poorly as a squad and kind of hone in on what we can do to rectify the issues that we had.
Great stuff. And wrapping up on the men's volleyball season at Park, you you finished 8-9 overall, but your 5-2 conference record looked pretty impressive for a first-year program.
Yeah, I'll take it any day, right?
Mm-hmm. So, like, what were the keys to, like, excelling, and were there any, like, turning points at the season which helped you prepare for conference?
I think, getting into that match with GCU was a good one, and then competing as well as we did against Benedictine as early as we did in the season was already a sign for us as a team to say, hey, we just competed with, the defending national champions for the NAI. If we can do that, we can compete with anybody that we play against. So, we want to keep that mentality. We took that into our conference play. I think there's one match that we lost in 5 that we shouldn't have lost. We made our own mistakes in the 5th set. We shouldn't have, but we did what we did, So it is what it is. They're learning mistakes that we get to learn from. And with the season getting cut short, we were fortunate we got to end in 2nd place in the Cal Pac. That was kind of fun. But you never know how we would have finished. Never know how those other teams would have finished, how Benton would have finished. UC Merced is a solid squad in our conference. Everybody else comes out and competes. Westcliff was getting better too. So it's, you never know how we finish, but because of, COVID-19 and everything like that, we did end in 2nd place. So I'll take a 2nd place finish our first year in competition any day.
Wrapping up the men's volleyball side of things, do you have plans of possibly scheduling any more NCAA men's volleyball programs other than like GCU?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we go out to California. So part of the CalPAC conference that we're in, we go out to California. So we're in the San Diego, Southern California area, and then we go to Northern California area. So we do have the option to go and play some other schools. So I would love to pick up some, D2s, smaller, and even a D1 that's out there that'd be interested in playing us and whatnot. So, it's all about reaching out and making those connections and trying to get on the schedule. So once I get that schedule officially locked and loaded, we're going after a couple different options.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And Marcus Losgreat, one of another IE Sports Radio host, is in the chat room saying GCU. Come on, Marcus. You got to show a little love to Park.
GCU's great. I love what Matt Willie's doing over there. I think we can all be successful at all levels, right? D1, NAI. So everyone has to play somewhere. Let's all be champions.
Absolutely, and iron sharpens iron, and I'm sure you all will be fully prepared and ready to go this upcoming fall on the men's side. So now let's turn the clock back to the women's side of things, where you didn't play in a conference, but in your inaugural season you finished 16-14, which is a pretty solid record. So what can you say about the women's volleyball season, and what were some memorable moments that year?
So the women's side of things was a lot of fun. For me, that was my first time getting into collegiate coaching. So, I was getting my feet wet and figuring some things out and seeing what I liked and what I didn't like, and being a part of the CalPAC and playing some other schools and the GSAC and some other schools there. We ran into some issues to where it's like, oh, you have a warm-up that's completely different. So some teams had a different warm-up style or a different time frame, if you will, how they warmed up. So we would go in and go, oh, let's change how we're doing our warm-up a little bit today. But our women's volleyball team is super resilient. We've got some gamers on there, and we're young. So I'm excited for the potential for, men's and women's. We've got a gnarly gym going for both sides, and for the girls' side of things, to finish above 500 in the first-year program, I'll take that as well. That's a win for us.
Absolutely. And one of those noteworthy wins, for the most part, was beating your, let's say, neighborhood rival Benedictine at Benedictine. Right. So what just worked in that match, and what will you always remember about that match?
So, this match really helped my men's volleyball team as well, with their confidence going into it, because I used it as an example. We played Benedictine, and going in, this is why you play the game of volleyball. This is why we love sports, right? Is because there's competition. The Suns went 8-0 in the bubble. How does this happen, right? There's these things that happen that we have to figure out, right? That's why we compete, and love that part of it. So, when we went in to go to Benedictine, same thing, my coaching staff, I got a boast about them. We went in to see, okay, these are their top hitters. This is what we're expecting to see. We watched a little film, and we critiqued it after that, and we had our game plan. And then going into it, told the girls, hey, look, anybody can win it, but let's take advantage of their errors. Let's do what we can. And that was a huge, huge win for us as a program, because it just started our season off with such a spark of, hey, we can compete with anybody now. Again, look at us. We're a brand new program. We're competing with the program that's been well established in the Valley for years. That's huge for us. So big win on multiple levels for that program, for sure.
Indeed it was. Which player on your women's team did you think had the most growth, and which player did you enjoy coaching the most for the most part?
Well, that's a tough question, right? I like all my players. There's some guys and gals that you like better than other, right? Coaches always have their quote unquote favorite, if you will. But I've really enjoyed coaching all of our women's volleyball team. We have some pretty dynamic players on there. One player in particular that always comes to mind is Kayla Weiserman. She's one of our middles. Her energy and her spirit that she brings to the game every single time is it's charismatic and contagious, So when she's super excited and engaged in the game, and, when she got a block or a kill, sticking her tongue out, going crazy, whatever she would do, we fed off of that, and then we were young in some areas, but we were very fortunate to bring in some transfer students. I thought Autumn Wood, our OH1, played a phenomenal season. She was our workhorse. If you look at the stats as far as, who received the most amount of sets, you would see her name, and then the next person would probably be about half of hers. So, we found her and found ways for her to score, and she did a lot for us. So, we're happy that we get to have her again.
Flip-flopping back to the men's volleyball aspect, I actually know one of the men's volleyball players of Park University of Gilbert, and that would be Trent Williams, who played at the school that I went to, Orange Coast College. What can you say about Trent Williams and how he adapted well from going from California to Arizona?
Yeah, so Trent played some pretty high-level volleyball, throughout club in his high school days, and then he went off to OCC and played over there, and he was kind of trying to find his way, and fortunately for me, Jake, Nineveh, the guy that was on your last show, he actually was like, hey, you need to talk to one of my players that I used to coach out here at Huntington Beach, and I was like, okay, I'll reach out to him. So we happened to be out in California for a club tournament, and I happened to meet up with him and talk to him about Park, and talk to him about my commitment level to helping him graduate and get through, because I know that was his next path is, hey, I got to graduate now. I've been to the JC route, now I need to graduate. So being able to kind of create that connection so quickly and getting him over to campus was phenomenal for us. His ball control helps us immensely. I mean, he got second team all conference in the CalPAC for a reason. So he's a dynamic player, but we've got some stellar athletes that, complement him well out there as well on the men's side.
So being a first-year program and having a lot of young talent, what were some moments that you needed, well, on the women's side, what were some moments that you needed to teach your team despite being a first-year program and facing all sorts of experienced teams?
Sure. Well, when you have success early on, that success is something that you're expecting, right? So we had some success early on, and then we had a couple matches to where we faltered, and we lost a couple matches in a row. And I could tell like the demeanor within the team, within the locker room was somewhat down. And, you know, I pulled them in and after a match that they had just recently lost, you know, it was a heartbreak, and just talked to them about like how proud I was as a coach of them and how hard they were working, and understanding that we are a first-year program, that we are competing against programs that those girls have been playing with each other for multiple years. And this is the first time we've played together. And, hey, we started in August, and it's September, and we're competing with these people, and we've only been playing together for a month. So trying to bring in the big picture perspective for them, to show them to, like, this team's level and ability to be really great at this level is there. We just got to put in the work. So there's some pieces to our puzzle that hopefully we filled this year with our recruiting, as the players that came in and players that we currently have. So we're excited for the battles that we're going to have at positions. You know, as a coaching staff, both men's and women's, across the board, we've got battles at every position. And as a coach, that's something that you can only dream of, right? To where it's like, oh man, I've got to choose between these top tier players or not, you know. So I'm very fortunate to say that we've got a good squad, and they're all committed into competing and winning.
Some great stuff right there. Great stuff. So you, as a first-year head coach, taking over a first-year program, and who coached at a school who pretty much was in their first year of athletics. Like, what lessons did you learn, and did you ask for advice or reach out to anyone when times got a little tough for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I you know, Ray Lewis at Benedictine, you know, I had reached out to him a couple times to ask for some advice on some things as well. And then within my, you know, networking of coaching experience, you know, I would reach out to some other coaching buddies of mine and just kind of have some dialogue with them, you know, and just kind of throw some things off of them to see what they thought, as far as, you know, do you think this is, you know, going to work? Is it going to work at a high level? Is it going to be successful? Because I think it is, but I think it needs to be tweaked. What do you think? So having, you know, such a great group of people around me within the volleyball community has really helped, you know, myself just continuously gain confidence to go after certain things and push myself to a different level of coaching.
As a coach, coaching is a lifestyle. From watching film and breaking it down to coaching in practice. Yeah. So from watching film and breaking everything down in practice and to all the training, what has coaching taught you as a human being and as a coach?
Well, so I recently just had a baby girl. So she was born on August 11th, and my wife and I, you know, we were in the hospital for the first week of school. You know, one thing that just recently for me, my biggest thing is I want to be in control. You know, I want to make sure that things are done right, because if they're not done right, I'm going to get frustrated if they don't get done right. I just have to give, again, credit to my coaching staff. They're amazing guys and girls that, you know, kind of put in some extra work and helped us be successful. So being confident enough with the people that I put in places for a reason to delegate things to them, you know, that's something that's taught me. And then, you know, patience is huge. And this team, this first year, we had so many growing pains and good things and bad things that happened to us throughout the year, towards all we could do was smile. You know, when a player made a bonehead mistake, we laughed about it, you know what I mean? Because it's, hey, we're all trying to figure this out together. So, you know, we're getting better every day at Park. You know, that's the glorious thing and the great thing about being a first-year, brand-new university. You know, every single one of these kids that are coming into Park get to start these traditions that we don't have because we're a brand-new school. So they get to come in and to be a foundation starter. They get to start traditions. They get to leave a legacy, you know. These kids that play, if a girl or guy's playing from a freshman year to their senior year and they're pretty good, there's a really good chance that when they leave as a senior, they're going to leave in our record books, right? Because we're brand new. So that's something that, we can offer for new athletes that are coming in and recruiting. So there's a lot of things to come at Park that are really exciting and are advantageous for all of our athletes.
Awesome stuff. So on a little bit of an off-the-court level, you have a little YouTube show called The Ben and Clay Show.
That's right. The Ben and Clay Show. Check it out. YouTube that.
So, in regards to the Ben and Clay Show, what have been like some of your more memorable moments with that?
Oh man! So the funny thing with the Ben and Clay Show, the soccer coach Ben Sanchez and I are good friends, and we just enjoy working together. And had always just kind of joked about, hey, we should just do a talk show about things that are going on with Park athletics on campus, all that good stuff, and this had all kind of started up when COVID was starting to kind of get started. And we started off with like, hey, let's make a quick virtual tour of campus. And then from there, it just kind of blossomed into where it is now. We recently just did a show on the equipment that we're using for sanitization purposes. So we did a spoof on it, so we dressed up like Ghostbusters. We did like a fun little video on it, and then at the end we actually talked about how we actually really do use this equipment and how we sanitize the classrooms down and all that stuff. But it's just a joy. I go to work with a smile on my face every single day because I get to work with great people and I have great athletes on my program. So that's something that I can't say every coach can say, and I'm very blessed to say that for sure. Absolutely,
and I guess it's basically like iSports Radio somewhat. Back in 2014, our founder started off with a little bit of a podcast, and then he eventually started to make it grow. And 6 years later, we're here now, and we've got plenty of shows which are definitely listenable to. So, that actually went to my next question in regards to the Ghostbusters edition. What was that like dressing up in the in like one of those Ghostbusters suits?
Like the hazmat suit, right?
Yes,
so
and they're wearing the masks.
It was fun. We did some filming. Like we took half a day to do it and whatnot, and we were doing some running around. And although we were inside, I was like, golly, I'm getting warm in here, so we had to take some breaks to cool down, and like I said, Ben's fun to work with. So some of the stuff that we come up with on the fly. That's kind of the purpose of the show. We just kind of go with it and have fun with it as we're going, talking about what's going on campus. So, but no, it was a lot of fun. It was a good time, and our producer there, Preston, he was going through all these things, and he was all about it because he's a big fan of Ghostbusters as well. And so is Dr. Gunderson and his wife are the president of our university back in Missouri. They're big fans of it, so I know they were watching it as well. So we had a good time with it. And then obviously, I don't know if you get to see the very end, I get slimed like in the face with some slime, and my assistant coach was fortunate enough to be able to throw that on my face. So he was able to take a little aggression out, throw it on the face and whatnot. But no, it was a lot of fun to do it and whatnot. So I'm sure we'll do some more. So stay tuned.
Oh, I will. I definitely will. I actually have it pulled up on the Instagram, and there's this little clip I'll probably be playing for everybody after a little interview. But
right.
So the Ben and Clay show, that's on YouTube only, or what's your little plug for that?
It's on YouTube or through Facebook. So we started out on Facebook. So if you go to our Facebook page, Park Gilbert Athletics, you go there and you can find it, or you go on the YouTube and look up the Ben and Clay show and you'll find it there. But yeah, we've got that. We've got a little theme song and an intro. It's the real deal. So it is watching it advance. We now have microphones, so we're getting pretty fancy over here. So it's just going to get better and better for all of our viewing eyes.
And there it is. There it is. And I definitely, and COVID has definitely been a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Okay, so back onto the court, back onto the volleyball court. So the whole COVID has flipped the whole athletic world upside down, including the NAIA. So what were your thoughts about hearing the NAIA moving everything to like the spring?
Yeah. So for me, my daughter was originally due August 18th, and I think our first day of practice was going to be like August 17th. So my wife and I were like, well, we should probably think about maybe having the baby a little early. So we ended up, she came on August 11th, so we were fortunate with that. But, it was a blessing in disguise, for us, because as we were going through, it just seemed like I was getting more and more emails towards like, okay, this school no longer can travel. This school has a travel restriction. You can only travel to them. So our schedule went from 28 dates down to 10 real fast, and I was struggling to find other teams that were still playing in the fall. So when it got moved to the spring, it was almost a sigh of relief for me, because now I know that my girls can get a full season, and we can actually train here in the fall, once everything's cleared and we go through our procedures on our end of things to make sure we're doing things right so we don't spread COVID. We can really give our girls a really solid experience. So hopefully we can build our schedule to be a little bit more robust for us to see some more talented programs, and who knows? So we'll see what the spring brings us. We still don't have that schedule. So the CalPAC is coming up with our schedule, so I don't even have a women's schedule yet. So for me, like I said earlier, I have a hard time not like delegating and not having things in. I'm sitting here like, okay, I'm ready for my schedule. I'd like to know what I'm doing. So, but it's, like everything that everyone is learning here with COVID-19, we have to be somewhat patient, right? So if anybody out there is teaching their kids at home and doing the online schooling, that patience is definitely what you need now with everything there. So,
absolutely. And when that schedule gets released, we will definitely everyone at IE Sports Radio will do our best to make note of it, and we definitely will be tuning in for some of your games, because we definitely want to see what you all can bring in your second year, and it's gonna be great times. All right.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So the NCAA obviously canceled all of its fall championship sports, with the exception of football, obviously. So do you think more volleyball fans are going to be tuning into the NAIA now that NCAA Division I and NCAA Division II have canceled? I think NCAA Division III have canceled all of their fall sport championships, which includes women's volleyball.
Correct. Yeah. I hope so. That'd be great. We're taking precautions to know and think that there's a good chance that we won't have fans in the stands this year, right? So with that, we're going to stream all of our matches on every single social media platform that we can, so that anyone and everyone can watch our match. So, that's our goal as a university, and I'm sure other universities are going to do the same thing. But, for us, from our standpoint, that's how we're going to try to get our matches out to our fans,
Yes, totally, and that would be a great thing, and I think everyone should be doing that, whether it's like via broadcast, whether it's via live stream on like YouTube or Facebook Live or anything, because technology is evolving at every stage, and you don't need the Pac-12 network to like get all of these games. Like everyone will find innovative ways, even without fans in the stands. So,
so it's just making the game better. It's advancing the game even more. So, it's kind of forcing our hand to be more, technologically advanced for our fans, so that way we can give them quality. Because I know there are sometimes to where, I'm filming from an iPad and the angle's not quite right, or maybe I can't give my fans the perfect view, and what's the score. And so I'm excited for, everything that's going to come to help our program out for sure, to where we're going to give our fans a different view, because we've got girls from all over the world. We've got Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Oregon, so we've got girls from all over the United States and whatnot. So we want to make sure that we can showcase them, competing and dominating for all their families to see.
And I think one of the my past guests from the junior college, Irvine Valley, did the whole Facebook Live thing through his iPad and whatnot. So
yeah, yep.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that technology is evolving, and
it totally is. Yes, so.
Yeah, we're not living in the dark ages or the dinosaur era. So, all right. So you having completed your first year as the head coach of both those programs, and Park in Gilbert had completed its first year of athletics. What were some valuable lessons you took away from this past year, and what were some past valuable lessons that Park took away from last year?
Sure. For me, some of the lessons that I took was just kind of understanding that not everything is going to be exactly how you want it in life. I like things a certain way. I wanted, I'm pretty meticulous about how things are run, but, there were speed bumps that came along as we would go that we had to adjust and go around. So being able to be flexible and not saying that, hey, this is how it's always going to be. So knowing that we were learning, on the fly and figuring some things out, we knew there were going to be some hiccups, but we're learning from those mistakes, and we're getting better and better and better. So from a standpoint of university, it's only beneficial for us because, our athletes are communicating to us hey, this is what I liked, this is what I didn't like, and we're making adjustments so that way we can, hopefully give a great student experience to all of our students.
As a coach, who do you look up to in terms of coaching on either the men's or women's volleyball side of things?
I think John Spraw's pretty substantial guy. I've recently actually been, as we watch high level volleyball and whatnot, I used to always kind of fast forward through the timeouts. I actually stop now and pay more attention to the timeouts between matches, especially in those high-level matches, USA Volleyball versus Brazil, whatever the case may be, right? And I just listen to what the coaches are saying, and just to kind of take that into my own coaching mindset, to where it's okay, there's some times, even at the highest level physically possible, these guys are making mistakes, and they're getting, served off the court or whatever the case may be. And what is the coach saying in those time frames? What are they doing? And that's something that, watching him and kind of watching his demeanor, it's just, there was a couple games that he lost this year that were ooh, they should not have lost. And, he handled himself really well, and that's something that, I always want to work on. I want to make sure that I represent myself and Park University with a positive light.
So, you having completed your first year as a coach at Park University, how would you describe the culture at Park?
So, we're creating that culture. Last year we created the culture pretty good. We're a family. We're one family. We're trying to, make sure that every single one of, the girls and the guys are being successful. On the girls' side of things, we had a cumulative GPA of a 3.6, and we led the university with the highest GPA. So that's something that, we took academics, seriously. We worked really hard in the gym, and knowing that, we're a brand new school, we want to get as many fans as we can, and if you're winning games, that's how you get fans. So, we wanted to put, bottoms in the seats. So we tried to win as many games as we could.
Student comes before athlete in the word student athlete. So that's great stuff, and great stuff that you were able to lead the whole teams in GPA and whatnot. So impressive stuff. So what is something that you want your athletes to leave Park University of Gilbert with? And is there something in particular you do your best to install in your players as young men or women aside from being NAIA athletes?
Sure. Obviously a degree. That's one of the number one things that we strive for, is that everyone who signs with us will finish and get their degree from Park University. So that's something that we strive for, on and off the court. We want to strive for excellence. But, we're ultimately just trying to, I guess as we're trying to grow the program, we're just going to compete in any phases as we can. And, I apologize. I got distracted. I'm not going to lie to you. I got distracted. Someone ran in front of my car and distracted me. So that got me off task. But no, for us, we're just trying to build quality culture and trying to build a great atmosphere for competition.
Awesome stuff. A few more questions and then I'll let you get on your way. So
no, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
It's that ADD thing. It's shiny thing syndrome. That's what happens.
It happens. Like you're totally good, man. So with the NCAA canceling the season, like what do you think might be going through the minds of those athletes mentally, knowing that they won't be playing in a fall sport championship, not just in women's?
I mean, it's brutal. From a coaching standpoint, when our season got cut short because of COVID, that was hard for us as a coaching staff. That was hard for us as a volleyball program, because I thought, on the men's side of things, we were starting to make some headway in a positive direction. We were really playing some pretty solid volleyball. We were coming up to compete against Benedictine for the second time around, so we were really super excited for that rematch. So, we were trying to kind of get ourselves geared up for that, but as an athlete and a competitor, you always want to play for a championship, right? You always want to compete at the highest level. So maintaining their level of, hey, look, you're still competing for something here, and that's your degree. I know it's not what you want to compete for, because I know, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, yeah, coach, but I want to play volleyball. I get that, but at this point in time, there's nothing we can do for you or do with that. Let's look on how we can turn it into a positive perspective. I try to look at it for a silver lining in a lot of situations. COVID stinks. Yeah, let's look at a silver lining. My fall schedule had 10 matches from 28 dates. Hey, now we are in spring. Now we have a positive, schedule coming our way. So I don't know. I just want to put a positive mindset out there, and then, instill that in my athletes as well. My wife and I, try to represent, what a good marriage should be. I try to talk to the guys on the men's side of things on, this is how you should be speaking. Don't be doing stupid things. And then same thing on the girls' side of things. It's like, hey, here's what I think, and, be smart with what you're doing and take care of each other. So we try to instill, positive mindsets to where when they leave the program, not only are they leaving with their degree, but they're leaving as, influence. They're going to be influencing people when they leave. They're going to be great people in the society. So I try to hopefully instill some good things in all the men and women, so that way they leave with something good on their shoulder.
Great stuff. Great wisdom and great silver lining. And I'm kind of like that too. I always like to have a little silver lining in everything.
Sure.
Yes, and then look at what happened with COVID. Despite the season being canceled, you got your own little YouTube series. So
that's right. I got a YouTube channel. I'm famous, almost as famous as you are.
I will help you get there. So when it comes to coaching the men and the women in the springtime, how's that going to be like, coaching both teams? And do you think the conference that you'll be playing in will accommodate you in regards to that, considering I think there might be some other men's and women's volleyball coaches who coach the same team?
Yeah, fortunately for me, I'm not a unicorn out there to where I'm the only one doing what I'm doing. So there are some other coaches that are, coaching both men's and women's. So my hope is that we have, back-to-back matches, to where men's and women's are going to play. So like my men's and women's will be travel partners, if you will. So, I look at it as like, okay, if we're not allowed to have fans, technically they're travel partners, then now we have fans. We've got the other team. The men's will support the women's and the women's will support the men's because we're traveling partners. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what comes about from all of it, that's for sure.
Great idea, and that would definitely help both programs support one another, and also help the culture at Park University. So,
no doubt.
Great idea, Coach. All right, so a couple more questions. So, whether your team wins or whether your team loses, what is your go-to after-meal place you like to eat at, or do you just go home for some home cooking?
That's a good one. I don't know. It just depends on where we're at. There's some really quality spots in Arizona that we go to, but we're always a huge fan of Chick-fil-A. You can't go wrong with Chick-fil-A. Gets the points over there, but my wife's a pretty darn good cook, so I'll go home and eat a home cooked meal any night of the week if she's cooking.
Hey, there's nothing better than home cooking, and Chick-fil-A is definitely good. I mean, that's also big in California, but I'm glad it's expanding to Arizona as well as In-N-Out. So, all right. So I like to always end this little interview on a little bit of a positive note. And I know you kind of heard my interview last week with your buddy Jake Nunaviller. So ever since this whole pandemic started, there was this one item in particular that just disappeared off the store shelves. No one knew what happened to it. It just vanished off the shelf. It just evaporated. No one knows what happened to it. So I need to know, Clay Webb, when this whole pandemic started, did you have enough toilet paper?
That's so funny. It's actually crazy. My wife and I had just gone to Costco maybe a week prior to everything really hitting the fans and all the toilet paper disappearing. So we were good. We had the Costco size bundles for a while. So I was sitting pretty with Charmin for a while, but I know there were some times to where I would go to the store and I'd see there'd be one roll left, and I'd call the wife hey, we're good on toilet paper, right? Yes. We went to Costco. We're fine. We've got enough toilet paper to last us for a month. We're okay. So we survived when everything hit the fan. So we were very fortunate.
Great stuff. The funny thing is that Jake Nunaviller said that he went to Costco and he lives by a Costco, or he's close by a Costco. So yeah. and there was also other coaches that I've had as past guests that have had Costco runs to get toilet paper. So you coaches are pretty smart. So so you're in the category of thinking outside the box, or in this case, thinking through Costco. All right. So thank you very much, Clay Webb, for the interview. Anything else you want to add before we head off to a commercial break?
No, thank you so much for having me and being a part of the show. It was a pleasure, and I wish you guys nothing but success as you guys continue to do.
Awesome stuff. So do hold on for a little bit. I would like to give you a proper goodbye. So when I get back from this little commercial break, I will be sharing my thoughts on the cancellation of the NCAA Fall Championships. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Drivers, start your engines. Auto racing takes many forms, from the close quarter contact of NASCAR
to the high-speed, high-risk atmosphere of IndyCar,
all the way to the pinnacle of technology with the Formula One World Championship.
No matter if you prefer the high banks of Daytona,
the concrete canyons of Long Beach,
or the flowing curves of the Nürburgring,
the international language of motorsports is simple. Go fast,
run hard,
and come home first.
So join us, myself, Daryl Kinsey Jr.,
Lolita Camello,
and Michael Ward,
on a world tour of all the best motorsports has to offer on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, only on your home for all. That is sports, i.e. Sports Radio.
From the home plate to the nets, the end zone to the finish line, here nothing is off limits and no sport is safe. Not what it seems with your host Caitlin Seam, bringing you sports like you've never heard before. Catch me Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, right here on IE Sports Radio. The only question is, are you ready?
That is right. You could check out that and all kinds of our other shows here on iSports Radio. Matter of fact, one show is going on right now, being Bases Loaded. So I'll give you a little bit of a soundbite of that.
I'm definitely going to be keeping my... anytime that I see that he's supposed to start, I may just...
Friday night, 7 o'clock against the Cards.
Oh, that's a pretty good matchup there. So, but this isn't the only story revolving around Cleveland right now. This whole thing with Plesac and Clevenger is still going on. They brought up Clevenger from the alternate side, but they didn't bring up Plesac. Maybe it's because McKenzie pitched well.
Yes, that's a little bit of what you'll be hearing on YouTube if you decide to go to the Bases Loaded show with Brandon Buckingham and Blake Henley. And Brandon and Blake both talk baseball. Bases Loaded is a great show overall. I was once a co-host, as I noted last week. So definitely do check that out when you get the chance. And they're also, and they're powered by StreamYard. So there's that. And just checking in on them and whatnot, and I think they're half an hour in their show, so definitely quickly stopping by and saying hello to them. So there's that, and definitely do check out all of our other shows. In 25 minutes, we have Gloves Off coming on with Mr. Marcus Losgreat, who is chilling out in the chat room, talking with Larry B, having a little banter of which is better between GCU and Cal Baptist. And also got to give a shout to Mr. Ben Suttereth III, saying sup, Teran. Definitely thank you for tuning in. You had yourself a great show with the weekend wrap-up, and also a great little live stream. Also, I have to note, the BS3 Awards, the BS3 Radio Awards, will be streaming live on Facebook next Monday at 7:30. I think it's a 6:30 Central Time, which is 7:30 Eastern, and 5:30 Pacific Time. I want to say it's that. I want to say it's 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 Eastern Time, and then 5:30 Pacific Time. So I'll definitely be tuning into that. I definitely love supporting Ben Sutterth III and all of his shows. And Marcus says, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. So as a little promise, I did manage to... I did promise you some snippets regarding the whole Ben and Clay show. So here's some snippets. Yeah, that's all the snippet you're going to get. I'm only going to show you one snippet. I don't know if I'll get a... I hope that's not copyright, honestly. But if you want more, definitely do check out the Ben and Clay show on YouTube and on Facebook Live. I'm pretty sure you just type in the Ben and Clay show, Park University, Gilbert. So I definitely do recommend it. I'm probably going to be checking that out after Marcus Los Great's show, Gloves Off, goes off. So definitely do support Ben and Coach Ben and Coach Clay. Thank you once again to Clay Webb for being a guest here on Set Point. It is definitely appreciated of his time. He's a busy man, coaching not one but two university volleyball teams at the same school, and I think he was also a club volleyball coach. So bless his little heart for having to juggle all that. So I really hope he does become successful, and he is going to put Park University of Gilbert on the map. So who knows? Maybe they'll be bigger than Park University of Missouri. So, but I digress. So now let's get on to some volleyball news. The NCAA has canceled all fall championships except for football. So good for the NCAA for not canceling football, but not good for the NCAA canceling women's volleyball. It really sucks. I mean, they're not canceling the women's volleyball season as a whole, but with over half the programs, conferences postponing or canceling all fall sports in general, they pretty much said, what's the point of having fall athletics, a fall sports championship, when there's not going to be all the primary teams like the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or the Big West or any of that stuff. So it is a bummer, and I kind of think have a mixed feelings on it. I think it's good and bad. I mean, the whole Pac-12 thing, just canceling everything until the end of the calendar year, is pretty stupid. I mean, I would have preferred having just a conference-only schedule for everything. And it just sucks. But I understand why, because if they continued with the NCAA Fall Championship for not just women's volleyball, but for all sports, and like an unusual NCAA champion was crowned that no one thought they were going to be crowned. Like, let's say for women's volleyball, Pitt would have won, because Pitt was actually good last year, and then unfortunately they lost in the second round to Cincinnati. So, sorry, Pitt. So, let's say Pitt would win the NCAA Women's Volleyball Championship, whereas this year I believe it was probably going to be between Wisconsin and Stanford. Nebraska probably could have challenged Wisconsin or Stanford, and Penn State is always good. And then you also have USC, which is up there. Washington was good. BYU was good. Utah is always up there. Minnesota. BYU is from the West Coast Conference, but I think West Coast Conference has postponed all of its fall sports for the time being. So it is quite the bummer, and to me it is disappointing. But again, it's for the greater good. I still just wonder why can't we just have one solution, I spoke to Clay before coming on live, is why don't we have a bubble? The problem is that, again, for all the remaining teams that are participating, it doesn't have the whole Power 5 deal. I mean, you'd have the SEC, you'd have the ACC, and you have the Big 12, but it just wouldn't have that same feel without Pac-12 and Big 10 and a few other of those top conference schools. Y'all know what I'm saying. So, to me, I think teams that would be, if the season did go on without a hitch, I think there would be a little asterisk. I hate to say that, but it just wouldn't be the same if not everyone participated. So, as much as I would like to have NCAA women's volleyball, even though a lot of teams and their conferences opted out, it just is for the better. What I am concerned about is them moving it to spring. So, they haven't canceled the season altogether. They've just canceled the fall championships. So, my thing is this. Is the NCAA women's volleyball season next to be postponed until, the fall? Because what's really the point of having an NCAA women's volleyball season if there's not going to be an NCAA championship for? I mean, you could move the whole playoffs to the spring, but would teams... I think that would be an even worse idea, because teams would be mentally checked out, and it just wouldn't be good for them. So that's just me, however, but I think you just have to wonder. It's just some more food for thought. Would the NCAA season be done after... Is the NCAA women's volleyball season going to get canceled next? Is it just going to be canceled? One good thing in regards to the whole fall championships are postponed. Yes, I use the word postponed because that's the word that they use. They haven't canceled it, but one thing that they have done is that they've granted every player another year of eligibility. So they're basically redshirting. So that's a good thing, and I guess that's good. But you also have to wonder for the seniors. After this, this was supposed to be your year. You were supposed to finish out your senior year and then just move on to play either professionally or play with Team USA on the beach volleyball side or the indoor volleyball side or anything like that. It's just food for thought for me. For seniors, they're kind of in a little bit of a quagmire. They're in a bit of a sticky situation and all that. So they either take the extra year of eligibility and just say, let's wait till next year and hopefully COVID passes. Or they just go through their classes and then just graduate and then they move on professionally, because most players, some notable players that I can see playing professionally are Dana Redke of Wisconsin, and I think maybe Megan McClure can play professionally in women's volleyball. She plays on Stanford, so it's just some food for thought. Random food for thought, honestly, but it's something you have to ponder. What if some of these seniors don't take the extra year of eligibility and they just go through their classes and then they say, I'm done, I want to graduate, and then I want to go play professionally. Sign me my contract, give me my money, gonna play me some volleyball overseas. So, yeah, that's something you definitely gotta wonder. I mean, the men's volleyball season aspect is nowhere near in jeopardy, but it could raise a couple eyebrows for concern about, should we cancel the season? So, again, it's just food for thought on my end. Who knows, maybe the seniors will just say, let's just, I can wait another year, or then there's the seniors that just want to start their volleyball career off professionally and whatnot. So we'll see. Time will tell. So, I mean, for me, I think it's a little. I think canceling postponing the fall championships hurts, but I don't know about moving it to spring. Like, that's going to be very tricky moving it to spring, because when it comes to spring, you also have to share the gym with the men's volleyball players. Then you also have to share. Then there's also the factoring of the NCAA basketball. And what if your school is the home site for the NCAA championship, and you're a NCAA women's or men's volleyball team? Like, that also opens up a can of worms. Unless the game is going to be played at unless the NCAA is willing to accommodate to some of those schools, or the school that is hosting the NCAA final for men's or women's basketball. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Time will tell, but it just kind of opens up a can of worms if we move the NCAA women's volleyball season to spring, because then you also have beach volleyball, because some of those NCAA women's volleyball players also play beach, so they're kind of at a little crossroads of where they should go in terms of beach, or should they go indoor, because I highly doubt they'll make both work, unless they have one practice. Because you also have to deal with the practices, and then if they have matches, and if the matches fall on back-to-back days, then you also have to factor that in. So I think you also need to factor in that the beach volleyball might be practice in the morning, and then the indoor might be practicing in the afternoon or the night or something like that. So, and then you also have to factor in night matches as well. So, for NCAA women's volleyball players who play both beach and indoor, it's a little tricky. It very is tricky. So, this whole COVID thing has turned the whole sports world upside down, and especially on the collegiate side, and for a good reason as well. I understand, the big priority, the number one priority is the athletes and the coaches. Without your athletes and without the coaches, there's no, your team has no sports. And without that, you have no way of making money and all that. So, I mean, everyone can get away with not having fans at certain games, but you also have to. But again, it still makes me wonder why they're canceling volleyball. I understand, the players are touching the ball, but that's why they get tested. That's why everything gets disinfected, and then everyone in their personnel gets tested, whether it's reporters, whether it's SIDs or the higher ups, and maybe scouts or assistant coaches, the play-by-play announcers, radio announcers, all that stuff. Everyone gets tested, and if they test negative, then they come on in. If they test positive for COVID, get out, quarantine yourself, get better. Yeah. And then for the play, like I said in the past, why don't they just test the players? Test them for COVID. If they have COVID, tell them shoot, get better, quarantine yourself, and we'll see how you do in the near future. But if you don't have COVID, my little solution is test the players 24, maybe 48 hours in advance. Then if they test, I think 48 hours would be good, because I think that would basically be the best standard time for testing. And if they test if they test negative, and let's say the test result takes 2 days, they get tested let's say they get tested Tuesday, and then they have a game on Thursday, and then before the game they find out you're good, they're good to go. And then if they're not good, then they just got quarantined. So they'd probably find out via Zoom or via phone call or whatnot. So again, this is just a lot of food for thought in my mind. Maybe I'm just overthinking. Maybe my solution has a few flaws. I know players get sweaty on the court, and then they're touching the ball every so often, and then they're having to dive on the ground for the ball and whatnot. And it's tricky. And especially since they would have to sanitize the ball and just clean the floor every time the ball would land on the floor after the player touched it, and also they'd have to wipe the floor every time a player would dive on the ground or fall on the ground and whatnot. So, yeah. So that there is some holes in my little plan, but still, it is some food for thought. Like volleyball there's hardly any contact with volleyball, so the only contact they would have is touching the ball. And Marcus does make a good point. Doesn't matter if they don't have COVID. Yes, I agree. Like that's why you test them like 20, 48, maybe 72 hours in advance before the game. And I think 72, 3 days before a game they get tested, and then if the test, like I said, the test comes out clean, they're good to go. But if it comes out that they have COVID, then they got quarantine. They're out for the game. Like, no excuses. We don't want you making everything worse. So, yeah. Again, I'm probably overthinking, but this is kind of my little food for thought. We'll call this little portion Teran's food for thought. So, especially since I like food, and it's almost 7 where I'm at. So, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the show. Big shout out to Mr. Marcus Losgreat for recommending my guest as well. That's one thing I forgot to mention. Shout out to Marcus Losgreat for recommending my guest, Clay Webb. Also a big shout out to Jake Nunaviller, who my guest from the 50th episode of Set Point. He gave me Clay Webb's contact info, and he heard about how Clay Webb being a recommendation for the show. So definitely big thank you to Jake Nunaviller. Definitely big thank you to Marcus Losgreat for recommending Clay, and that really helps. It really helps me out. Helps the show keep going. If it comes down to it, and before I wrap up, I think the NAIA is moving everything to the spring as well. So that's, like I said, it's going to get tricky for coaches like Clay Webb, who coach the men's and women's volleyball teams at certain schools. So, again, we'll have to see. I know there's not going to be any NAIA volleyball in the fall, but if push comes to shove, I would definitely make a note on some NAIA volleyball action. If there was some NAIA volleyball in the fall, I will definitely report on it. If it's high school volleyball, I'll report on it. The problem is with California is that there's not going to be any high school volleyball until December. But most states have been approving for high school volleyball. Heck, some are even having high school volleyball on blacktops outside, which is kind of strange. How are they going to dive for the ball without getting a scrape on the ground? I don't think they're going to have it on blacktops. I think they're just going to have flooring on the blacktop, so they don't have to dive on the ground and get scrapes on their knee pads and their thighs and whatnot. So yeah, again, it's just some food for thought on my part. Maybe again, I might be overthinking this, but I might not be. So on that note, we are going to wrap up here for Set Point. Thank you all for joining in. Thank you to Clay Webb for joining me on Set Point. It is definitely appreciated. And thank you all once again for tuning in to Set Point. Like I said, it definitely means the world to me that you all continue to support Set Point, especially for people like Marcus Losgreat. And something I read in the chat room was that I guess Marcus played volleyball. According to Larry B, he said Marcus played volleyball back in the day, and he also played football and basketball, and he also boxed. So you learn something new every day, and I guess that's pretty cool, Marcus, that you played 3 sports and you boxed, and that's really awesome. I like that, Marcus. So good stuff, and in about 5 more minutes, I definitely want you all to tune in to Gloves Off with Marcus Losgreat. He does a great job with his show. It focuses on combat sports and all that. So definitely do tune in. And on that note, it is time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. Y'all feel me? Thank you once again to everyone that listened in to Set Point. If you're listening on the live stream, thank you. If you're listening on the replay, thank you. And Larry B says he didn't play volleyball, but it would be cool if he did. Yeah, I kind of figured that was the case. So the nerve of you, Larry B. I'm kidding with you, brother. I love you, man. Big shout to Larry B for his support of iSports Radio and for all of iSports Radio shows and whatnot. So big shout to everyone that's listening that listened live and that's listening on the replay. And once again, thank you to Clay Webb, my guest. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Set Point. We shall see if we have Set Point later on. Be sure to keep on listening and watching iSports Radio's shows, whether they're live on like StreamYard and whatnot, or they're live on Facebook Live, and do keep an eye on iSports Radio's social media pages on Instagram and Twitter and whatnot. And I will be seeing y'all next week for another edition of Set Point. Have a great rest of the evening, everybody. I shall see you all tomorrow. Peace and blessings.